The streetlights flickered over a bustling city corner as a black couple stood outside a cafe, their laughter and relaxed demeanor contrasting with the harshness of the night. Suddenly, the screeching of tires broke the calm as a patrol car pulled up, and two stern-faced officers stepped out. What happened next was both humiliating and shocking. The couple, accused of loitering, were handcuffed and taken away despite their protests. But this wasn't the end. Watching the events unfold from her phone was their teenage daughter, someone the officers would soon regret underestimating. What could one young girl possibly do to challenge an entire system? As the couple faced humiliation, their daughter was already planning a move that would flip everything upside down. How did a teenager confront those who abused their power? How did her bold actions leave not just the officers, but an entire city stunned? Stay tuned as we uncover the full story of courage, determination, and a lesson in standing up for what's right. This is a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat and leave you inspired to take action. The cafe's patio buzzed with life as Marcus and Angela, a hard-working black couple, enjoyed a rare night out. They sipped their drinks, laughing softly, unaware of the trouble heading their way. A police cruiser rolled into the lot, its flashing lights casting an unsettling glow. Officers James and Carter, known for their aggressive approach, stepped out, eyes narrowing on the couple. "Can we help you, officers?" Marcus asked politely as they approached. "You're loitering," Officer James barked, crossing his arms. "This isn't a hangout spot." Angela frowned, holding up their receipt. "We just paid for our drinks. We're not loitering." But their calm responses only seemed to fuel the officers' irritation. Within minutes, things escalated. Handcuffs snapped on their wrists, and stunned patrons watched in silence as the couple was dragged to the patrol car. Back at home, their teenage daughter Chloe was glued to her phone, horrified by a live stream of the arrest. She wasn't just angry. She was ready to act. This wasn't the first time people in their neighborhood faced such treatment, and Chloe decided it would be the last. The wheels in her mind turned as she planned her next steps, knowing she'd stop at nothing to bring justice. Chloe sat at her desk, her laptop screen glowing in the dimly lit room. The images of her parents being wrongfully arrested replayed in her mind, the humiliation they endured cutting deeply into her soul. Marcus and Angela, the couple who had always taught her the importance of resilience and integrity, were now victims of blatant injustice. Chloe clenched her fists, determined not to let this go unnoticed. She clicked on the viral video circulating on social media, pausing it on the moment where her father calmly asked the officers, "Why are we being arrested?" The officers' dismissive responses and smug expressions fueled her anger. Chloe wasn't just any ordinary teenager. A tech-savvy high school senior with a passion for activism, she had honed her skills in digital advocacy over years of online campaigns for social causes. This time, the cause was personal. She shared the video on all her social media platforms, captioning it, "My parents were arrested for standing outside a restaurant while being black. Is this the world we live in?" Within hours, the video began to gain traction. Friends, classmates, and strangers started commenting, sharing, and expressing their outrage. The hashtag she created began trending locally and, eventually, nationally. Chloe wasn't just relying on the video alone. She knew the power of narrative. Using her coding skills, she created a sleek, dedicated web page detailing the events of the evening. The site included timelines, eyewitness accounts, and even a section allowing others to share similar stories of racial profiling by local authorities. Chloe spent hours gathering statements from people who had been at the restaurant that night. A waitress confirmed they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just standing there chatting. Through her research, Chloe uncovered troubling details about the arresting officers. Both had histories of complaints filed against them, including accusations of racial bias. Chloe documented these findings meticulously and uploaded them to her webpage. The transparency of her work drew even more attention. She reached out to local journalists, emailing them the video, her findings, and her parents' contact information for interviews. Meanwhile, Marcus and Angela had been released from custody after hours of being held in a cold cell. The experience left them shaken but even more resolute to stand up against the injustice. When they returned home, they found Chloe surrounded by papers, screenshots, and notes. Her determination was evident, her youthful energy unrelenting. "You've done all this?" Marcus asked, his voice a mixture of amazement and concern. Chloe nodded, her face serious. "We can't let this happen to anyone else. The world needs to know what's going on." As the family sat together, Chloe shared her plan. She wasn't just aiming for their release or an apology. She wanted systemic change. Chloe's efforts began to draw attention from influential figures. Civil rights organizations reached out to her, offering support and resources. One organization helped her set up a virtual community meeting, which Chloe used to gather more stories of discrimination and harassment from the local Black community. At the meeting, the virtual room filled quickly. Faces, young and old, appeared on the screen, their expressions a mix of anger, exhaustion, and hope. Chloe facilitated the discussion, sharing her parents' story first, before inviting others to speak. A middle-aged man recounted how he had been stopped multiple times while walking home from work. A young woman described a terrifying encounter with officers during a traffic stop. As the stories poured in, Chloe realized this wasn't just about her family. It was about a pattern of behavior that needed to be confronted. She compiled the testimonials into a comprehensive report, which she planned to present to local government officials. While Chloe worked tirelessly, the video of her parents' arrest continued to gain momentum online. Prominent social media influencers and celebrities shared it, amplifying the call for justice. The local police department faced mounting pressure to address the situation. Reporters crowded their headquarters, demanding statements from the officers involved. Despite the growing support, Chloe knew that public attention could fade quickly if action wasn't taken soon. She decided to escalate her efforts by organizing a peaceful protest. Drawing inspiration from civil rights leaders, Chloe partnered with local activists to plan a march from the restaurant to City Hall. The theme was simple but powerful: justice for all. On the day of the protest, hundreds of people gathered. Chloe stood at the front, holding a microphone. She took a deep breath and addressed the crowd. "We're here today because of an injustice that happened to my family," she began, her voice steady and clear. "But this isn't just about us. This is about every person who's been targeted, humiliated, or mistreated because of the color of their skin. This is about change." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices echoing through the streets. Chloe led the march with her parents by her side, their heads held high. The sight of such unity was inspiring, and news outlets covered the event extensively, bringing even more attention to their cause. Chloe's unwavering determination began to yield results. The police department announced an internal investigation into the officers' actions. Community leaders met with Chloe and her family to discuss reforms aimed at addressing racial bias within the department. Chloe's story became a symbol of what could be achieved when ordinary people stood up against injustice. Late one evening, as Chloe sat at her desk, her phone buzzed. It was an email from a prominent civil rights leader. "Your courage inspires us all," it read. Chloe smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This was just the beginning of her journey to create lasting. As the protests gained momentum and media coverage continued to shine a spotlight on the wrongful arrest of Marcus and Angela, the local police department began to feel the weight of public scrutiny. Chloe, however, knew that protests and social media outrage were only part of the solution. She needed to make sure that the systemic issues causing such injustices were addressed. Chloe spent days meticulously organizing the testimony she had gathered during the virtual community meeting. These first-hand accounts of discrimination and racial profiling painted a harrowing picture of the department's deep-rooted issues. Using her tech skills, Chloe created a detailed presentation that highlighted the patterns of behavior, connecting each incident to the same systemic flaws. Her determination caught the attention of a local attorney, Sheila Morgan, who had spent her career fighting for civil rights. Sheila reached out to Chloe, offering her legal expertise to help push for change. Together, they planned to take the issue directly to the city council. Chloe was nervous but determined as the day of the city council meeting arrived. Standing in front of a packed room, she took a deep breath and began her presentation. She displayed charts, graphs, and clips from the viral video of her parents' arrest, illustrating how these incidents were not isolated but part of a troubling pattern. "Imagine being treated as a criminal for simply existing," Chloe said, her voice firm but emotional. "That's the reality for people like my parents, like me, like so many others in this community. This isn't just about one incident. It's about ensuring that everyone, regardless of their skin color, is treated with dignity and respect." Her words struck a chord with the audience. Some members of the city council looked uncomfortable, while others nodded in agreement. Chloe's presentation ended with a list of demands: transparency in policing, mandatory bias, training for officers, and the creation of an independent oversight committee to handle complaints against law enforcement. As the meeting ended, Sheila stood up to speak. "What Chloe has presented is undeniable evidence of a problem that must be addressed," she said. "This council has a moral obligation to act, not just to appease public outrage, but to create lasting change." The council promised to review the demands, but Chloe wasn't about to leave it at that. She knew how slow bureaucracy could be, so she decided to apply even more pressure. Sheila helped her draft a petition demanding immediate action, which Chloe shared online. Within days, the petition gathered thousands of signatures. Meanwhile, Chloe continued to rally the community. She organized workshops to educate people on their rights during police encounters and launched a fundraiser to support families who had been impacted by similar incidents. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, and Chloe's determination inspired others to join the fight. But not everyone was supportive. Chloe and her family began receiving anonymous threats warning them to back off. One night, their mailbox was smashed, and a hateful message was scrawled across their garage door. Chloe's parents were worried for her safety, but Chloe refused to back down. "This is exactly why we need to fight," Chloe told her parents, her voice unwavering. "If we let fear silence us, nothing will ever change." Her courage caught the attention of national media. Chloe was invited to share her story on a popular talk show, where she spoke passionately about the importance of standing up to injustice. "This isn't just about my family," she said during the interview. "It's about creating a future where no one has to live in fear because of the color of their skin." Back in her community, the police department finally announced the results of their internal investigation. The 2 officers involved in Marcus and Angela's arrest were suspended without pay, pending further review. While it was a small victory, Chloe knew it was just the beginning. With the momentum she had built, Chloe pushed forward. She continued to collaborate with Sheila and other local leaders to draft a set of policy recommendations for the city council. These included mandatory body cameras for all officers, independent review boards for police misconduct, and increased funding for community policing initiatives. The pressure worked. The city council held a special session to vote on the proposed reforms. Chloe and her family attended, sitting in the front row as the council deliberated. When the vote passed unanimously, the room erupted into applause. Chloe's hard work had paid off. As the meeting adjourned, council members approached Chloe to thank her for her bravery and dedication. One councilwoman said, "You've done more than just bring attention to this issue. You've created a path for real change." That evening, Chloe and her parents sat together in their living room, reflecting on everything that had happened. "We couldn't be prouder of you," Marcus said, his voice filled with emotion. Angela nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "You've shown the world what one person can do when they refuse to give up." Chloe smiled, feeling a mix of relief and pride. But she also knew that the fight wasn't over. There were still many battles to be fought, and she was ready to take them on. As Chloe's efforts continued to make waves in the community, her story inspired others to take action as well. Activists, students, and local organizations began rallying together, creating a powerful coalition determined to challenge injustice and demand accountability from those in power. Chloe's next focus was on ensuring that the policies passed by the City Council were implemented effectively. She worked closely with Sheila Morgan to monitor the progress of the reforms. They created a public dashboard that tracked the implementation of each measure, ensuring transparency and keeping the pressure on the council and police department. Meanwhile, Chloe expanded her efforts to educate the community about systemic injustice. She organized town hall meetings where residents could share their stories and voice their concerns. These meetings became a safe space for people to connect, heal, and plan for further action. Chloe also launched a youth program that provided mentorship and leadership training, empowering the next generation to continue the fight for equality. The community's energy and determination began to spread beyond the local level. Chloe was invited to speak at a state conference on criminal justice reform, where she shared her experience and called for similar changes across the state. Her speech, delivered with the same passion and authenticity that had fueled her efforts from the beginning, resonated deeply with the audience. "Change doesn't happen overnight," Chloe said during her speech. "It happens because people refuse to stay silent. It happens because communities come together and demand better. And it happens when we hold each other accountable for creating a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." Back home, Chloe's parents watched her speech online with tears in their eyes. "She's unstoppable," Marcus said, his voice filled with pride. Angela nodded. "She's giving a voice to so many who felt voiceless for so long." But the journey wasn't without its challenges. Chloe continued to face criticism and threats from those resistant to change. Some accused her of stirring up trouble, while others dismissed her efforts as performative. These attacks weighed heavily on Chloe at times, but she remained steadfast in her mission. "You can't please everyone," Sheila reminded her during one particularly tough day. "But you're not doing this for them. You're doing this for the people who believe in a better future and for the ones who need that future the most." Chloe's determination paid off as her work began to yield tangible results. The Independent Review Board started holding officers accountable, leading to disciplinary actions in several cases of misconduct. The body camera policy was fully implemented, providing greater transparency in police interactions. And the Community Policing Initiative fostered stronger relationships between officers and residents, rebuilding trust that had long been broken. 1 year after her parents' arrest, Chloe stood in the same park where they had been detained. The space, once a site of injustice, had been transformed into a symbol of hope and resilience. A community event was underway, celebrating the progress that had been made and recommitting to the work still ahead. Chloe addressed the crowd, her voice strong and filled with gratitude. "This isn't just my story, it's our story. Together we've shown that change is possible, but we've also shown that it takes all of us. Every voice matters, every action matters, and we can't stop now." As the crowd cheered, Chloe felt a sense of pride and purpose that fueled her even more. Her parents stood by her side, beaming with love and admiration. The community they had built together was stronger than ever, and Chloe knew that their collective power could accomplish anything. Chloe's story didn't end there. She continued to advocate for justice, both locally and beyond. She worked with legislators to push for statewide reforms, ensuring that the progress they had made would benefit communities across the state. And, through it all, she remained grounded in the love and support of her family and neighbors. Her parents often reminded her of the strength she had shown in turning their moment of injustice into a movement for change. "You've shown us what's possible," Angela said one evening as they sat together. "And you've reminded us that we're never powerless, not when we stand together." As Chloe looked ahead, she felt a deep sense of responsibility, but also immense hope. The fight for justice was far from over, but she knew they were on the right path. With each new challenge, Chloe was ready to rise, empowered by the belief that together they could create a brighter, fairer world for all. As the community continued to thrive under Chloe's leadership and the reforms began to transform daily life, she realized there was still more work to be done. While the visible changes, like new policies and community programs, had brought hope, the deeper systemic issues required sustained effort and vigilance. One of Chloe's key goals was to ensure that the community policing initiative wasn't just a symbolic gesture, but a meaningful change in how law enforcement interacted with residents. To achieve this, she organized joint workshops, where police officers and community members came together to discuss their experiences and perspectives. These workshops fostered understanding and empathy, breaking down barriers of mistrust that had existed for years. Chloe also knew that education was a powerful tool for change. She collaborated with local schools to develop a curriculum that taught students about civil rights, systemic injustice, and the power of activism. The program included storytelling sessions where elders from the community shared their experiences of overcoming discrimination and advocating for justice. Meanwhile, the independent review board that Chloe had championed continued to make waves. It wasn't just addressing complaints, but also conducting proactive audits of police practices. This level of oversight ensured that officers were held accountable and that the community felt safer and more respected. Chloe's relentless efforts didn't go unnoticed. She received invitations to speak at national conferences, where she shared her journey and inspired others to take action in their own communities. Her speeches were heartfelt and grounded, emphasizing that real change required collective effort and courage. "Every one of us has the power to make a difference," she often said. "It starts with listening to each other, standing together, and refusing to accept the status quo." Back home, Chloe remained deeply involved in the day-to-day work. She mentored young activists, teaching them how to organize effectively and use their voices to create impact. She also worked closely with her parents, who had become active participants in the movement. Marcus and Angela often spoke at events, sharing their story as a reminder of the injustice they had faced and the strength it had inspired in their family. Their story, once a source of pain, had become a beacon of hope for others. People from all walks of life reached out to share how Chloe's work had inspired them to stand up for themselves and their communities. Messages poured in from across the country, thanking her for showing that change was possible even in the face of overwhelming odds. Despite these successes, Chloe remained focused on the work still ahead. She knew that progress was fragile and that the systems they were challenging had deep roots. She expanded her efforts to address broader issues like housing inequality and economic disparity, understanding that these factors were interconnected with the injustices they had already tackled. One of her proudest moments came when the park where her parents had been arrested was renamed in honor of community resilience. The space was revitalized with new amenities, including a playground, picnic areas, and a mural that celebrated unity and strength. At the renaming ceremony, Chloe stood alongside her parents and neighbors, reflecting on how far they had come. "This park is more than a place," Chloe said during her speech. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we refuse to be silenced. It's a reminder that every step forward matters, no matter how small." As the crowd cheered, Chloe felt a surge of gratitude for the people who had supported her and for the resilience of her community. She knew that their fight wasn't just about policies or programs. It was about creating a world where everyone felt valued and heard. In the months that followed, Chloe's influence continued to grow. She was featured in national media outlets, highlighting her work as a model for grassroots activism. She also formed partnerships with other communities, sharing resources and strategies to amplify their collective impact. Chloe's journey had transformed her into a symbol of hope and determination, but she remained humble and grounded. She often reminded herself of the day her parents were arrested and how that moment of injustice had sparked a movement that was changing lives. Her parents, too, found a renewed sense of purpose in their advocacy work. They often spoke about how proud they were of Chloe and how her courage had inspired them to stand taller. "She's shown us what's possible," Marcus said during an interview, "and she's shown us that our voices matter." As Chloe looked to the future, she felt a deep sense of responsibility, but also immense hope. The challenges ahead were daunting, but she knew they were surmountable with the strength of her community and the power of collective action. Chloe's story wasn't just about overcoming adversity. It was about transforming it into a force for good. Her unwavering commitment to justice had inspired a movement that was reshaping not just her neighborhood, but the world around her. And, as she continued to push forward, she knew that together they could create a brighter, fairer future for all. As the months passed, Chloe's work began to bear even more fruit, spreading beyond her local community. News of her efforts had reached neighboring towns and cities, inspiring others to take up the mantle of change. The story of her family's perseverance and the transformation it sparked became a rallying cry for grassroots movements across the region. Chloe's days were busier than ever, filled with meetings, community events, and planning sessions. She often reminded her team that the success they were seeing wasn't the end goal, but a foundation for even greater progress. "We're just getting started," she would say. "The changes we're making today need to last for generations." One of her key initiatives was launching a scholarship program named after her parents, Marcus and Angela. The program was designed to support young leaders in underserved communities, helping them pursue education and projects that could create meaningful change. Marcus and Angela were deeply moved by the honor and took an active role in mentoring the scholarship recipients. During a ceremony to award the first batch of scholarships, Chloe addressed the recipients with heartfelt words. "Each of you has the potential to change the world," she said, her voice steady and full of conviction. "Use this opportunity not just for yourself, but to uplift others. Remember, progress is a team effort, and every small step counts." Beyond her scholarship program, Chloe focused on building partnerships with local businesses and organizations to create job opportunities and mentorship programs for the community. She understood that systemic issues couldn't be addressed in isolation. Economic empowerment, education, and justice were all interconnected, and solving one meant tackling them all. Her dedication also caught the attention of national leaders. Chloe was invited to speak at conferences and summits, sharing the story of how her family's ordeal had sparked a movement that was reshaping an entire community. Her speeches were authentic and moving, blending personal anecdotes with actionable insights. "Justice starts with accountability," she would say, "and accountability starts with us." Meanwhile, her parents' role in the movement grew as well. Marcus became a community advocate focusing on issues of police reform and racial equity, while Angela spearheaded initiatives for community wellness, including mental health programs and support groups. They often spoke about how proud they were of Chloe and how her determination had reignited their own passion for change. The couple's relationship with law enforcement also shifted. Officers who had previously turned a blind eye to systemic problems began to participate in community-building programs. Chloe worked closely with them to ensure that the changes were genuine and not just superficial gestures. She held them to the same high standards she set for herself, demanding accountability and transparency at every step. One memorable moment came during a town hall meeting where a young boy asked Chloe a poignant question. "What do you do when people don't believe in you?" The room fell silent as Chloe knelt to his level, her eyes meeting his. "You believe in yourself first," she said gently, "and then you find people who will stand with you. You're never alone, even when it feels that way." This interaction went viral, capturing the hearts of millions and further solidifying Chloe's role as a beacon of hope. Messages poured in from around the world, with people sharing their own stories of resilience and thanking Chloe for her courage. The media's attention also brought new challenges. Critics accused Chloe of seeking the spotlight, but she remained unfazed. "This isn't about me," she said during an interview. "It's about the people who have been ignored for too long. I'm just using my voice to make sure they're heard." Amid the whirlwind of activity, Chloe made sure to carve out moments of quiet reflection. She often visited the park where her parents had been arrested, now renamed in honor of community strength and resilience. Sitting on a bench, she would watch children playing and families gathering, a testament to how far they had come. During one of these visits, Angela joined her, bringing a small photo album filled with memories of their family. As they flipped through the pages, Angela said, "You know, Chloe, we always believed in you. But seeing what you've done, it's beyond anything we could have imagined." Chloe smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you and Dad. Your strength gave me mine." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the park, Chloe felt a renewed sense of purpose. There was still so much work to do, but moments like these reminded her why she fought so hard. In the following months, Chloe expanded her efforts to neighboring communities, sharing resources and strategies to help others achieve similar success. She launched a coalition of grassroots leaders, fostering collaboration and unity among diverse groups with shared goals. This coalition became a powerful force for change, amplifying their collective impact and ensuring that no one was left behind. Despite the growing scale of her work, Chloe remained deeply connected to her roots. She continued to mentor young activists, host community events, and advocate for systemic reform. Her unwavering dedication inspired countless others to join the movement, proving that real change was possible when people stood together. By the time Chloe's efforts had gained national recognition, her community had become a model for others to follow. Policies that once seemed unattainable were now being adopted in cities across the country. Programs that started as small experiments were transforming lives on a large scale. Yet for Chloe, the greatest reward wasn't the accolades or the headlines. It was the knowledge that her parents could walk through their neighborhood with pride, knowing that their family's struggle had sparked a movement that would endure for generations. The aftermath of the couple's wrongful arrest left an indelible mark on the family. Their daughter, Jasmine, couldn't shake the memory of her parents being humiliated and dragged away for doing nothing but standing outside their own neighborhood. That moment became a defining one for her, and she vowed to never let such an injustice go unanswered. Jasmine, though young, was sharp, determined, and resourceful. She started digging into the legalities surrounding loitering laws and what had happened to her parents. With her parents temporarily sidelined by stress and fear, Jasmine stepped up to become their voice. She combed through online forums, reached out to legal aid organizations, and even contacted a local investigative journalist who specialized in exposing police misconduct. The journalist, intrigued by Jasmine's determination, agreed to help. Together, they gathered witness testimonies from neighbors who confirmed that the couple had been standing outside their own home. Even more damning, Jasmine unearthed body cam footage through a Freedom of Information Act request. The footage showed officers mocking the couple and discussing targeting residents in the area without any legal grounds. As the evidence piled up, Jasmine worked with a pro bono lawyer to prepare a case against the police department. With the journalist's help, the story went public. The footage went viral on social media, with hashtags like Justice for the Thompsons and End Racial Profiling trending nationwide. The overwhelming support brought national attention to the family's fight. The police department scrambled to control the narrative, but the public backlash was relentless. Town hall meetings were packed with angry citizens demanding accountability. Jasmine's voice became central to the movement. She gave interviews, shared her parents' story, and called for systemic changes, including better training for officers and accountability for misconduct. When the case finally went to court, the evidence was undeniable. The officers involved were suspended and the family won a substantial settlement. Jasmine insisted the money be used to set up a community legal fund to help others who might face similar injustices. Her actions not only brought justice for her family but also ignited meaningful change within the community. In the end, Jasmine's courage and tenacity became an inspiration to many. Her parents, once shaken, now stood prouder than ever, knowing their daughter had turned their pain into a powerful force for good. Jasmine's journey proved that even in the face of injustice, one determined voice could make a difference. Did this story shock you as much as it did us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if faced with such injustice? Let's start a conversation about standing up for what's right and creating a better future. Don't forget to share and subscribe for more eye-opening stories that inspire change. Together, we can make a difference.